Hi all! A brief, unscripted Erica moment before we begin today's video. Seeing as this video is about my recent experience showing at the New England Novice Extravaganza, I have included some pictures of my horses that won higher placed ribbons. Now, as is typical, anytime I put pictures of my horses that have my show tags in them, if my full name is showing on the tag, I always just take a moment to edit the picture to blur or erase my full name. Understandable. But this time I also took an extra step that, in hindsight, I'm not particularly proud of, or I'm not happy that I made this choice. I'll try to make this brief so we can get into the real video. But essentially, I also made the choice to go ahead and blur some of my breed choices for my horses that won. It's a thing I see a lot of people do, or if they don't outright blur them in their pictures, we all know the site. Someone just stacks their, Nan card or their ribbons or whatever just right, just so you cannot see what they decided to make the breed of their winning horse, especially if it is a breed class. And I think I was simply influenced by a lot of the pictures that I was seeing to go ahead and make that move. Well, Region 10 just had a kind of play day, workshop / swap meet this past weekend, and one of the workshops that I attended was about documentation. Somehow, the chat got around to talking about, honestly, how great Region 10 is, in that we tend to be friendly and we try to be helpful towards, everyone, but especially towards novices in the hobby. The person who is running this workshop specifically mentioned how in other regions, when taking and showing pictures of their winners, people, especially in other places, and I'm sure it's happened for other people in Region 10, but how, I guess in a lot of other places though, that maybe are a bit more cutthroat, it's more common for people to really attempt to be secretive so nobody can use or borrow, the same breed that they have chosen for XYZ model horse. And after being part of that discussion, which I should mention took place after I had already edited my photos, I felt bad about what I had done, and I really regretted making those changes. Now, unfortunately, I also apparently deleted the original copy of each photo, so I truly wanted to go back and just go ahead and insert the original fully uncovered, but I don't have them anymore. So you are going to be exposed, that's the wrong word, but you are going to see the copies of the pictures that I have that do have blurs. What it boils down to is, I honestly do not care that much. Yes, I picked some other, some breeds that maybe were not super common, and, probably helped me get some kind of ribbon. But maybe not. I don't think there was anything terribly rare. So, honestly, if you have any questions about anything that I decided to cover up, I'll tell you. It's not that big of a deal. So I am not going to make that move again going forward. I really do think it's against the spirit of helping newer people in the hobby, and that's definitely not what I'm about. I mean, I still consider myself pretty new, but there are definitely other people, and definitely other people watching my videos, who are even newer than I am. So I just wanted to throw this quick disclaimer, real talk moment in at the beginning of this video. And I hope you'll understand. I hope you yourself will think about it when it comes to sharing your own videos or your own photos, and do whatever feels the best for you. But I know that, again, going forward, I'm only gonna blur my name. I'm not gonna go to any lengths to hide breed assignments or anything like that. So that's all from Editing Erica. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Hi all, this is Erica, aka ECR Horses 1901, and thank you for your patience while I have been busy these past few weeks. Today we are going to talk about my latest show experience at the New England Novice Extravaganza a couple of Saturdays ago, and also my first time judge shadowing at the New England Mini Extravaganza the next day. I had a fantastic time doing both, so let's get into it. Now, before we dive in, if you've been watching my videos for a bit, you may be like, wait, Novice? I thought you went to Are You Kidding Me Live earlier this year. And I did. But if you recall, it was not the best outing for me. My Heartlands did well, but when it came to my Briars, not so much. And although Novice is in the title of this show, I actually competed in the intermediate division, which is an option I am really glad exists at this show because it's the level that I think really best describes, and I've talked about this before, but I feel like it best describes my collection and therefore my show string at this point. Also, when I was choosing models to bring to this show, I purposely did not bring any of the few models that got Nan cards at Are You Kidding Me Live. Because from what I have read, horses aren't supposed to get Nan cards and also novice level division cards at the same time. I guess that makes sense. So I didn't want to cause any problems, and so yeah, any of those few horses that got Nan cards stayed home. So who did I bring to this show? There is a good mix of collectibility and breed classes, as well as performance, though I am not dabbling in that at this moment in time. I ended up bringing about 60-something models, which is not too bad, although as I was saying to my husband at this show, I kind of would like to pare it down even lower to about 50-something models the next time I show. And as always, I brought a mix of horses who historically have done well for me, as well as some new models, and a few that haven't shown well in the past, but who I stubbornly believe in. In a few cases, it finally paid off this time. That said, overall, my show string did exactly the way that I would hope my horses would do at a show. Some classes we didn't get anything, but I also got a good array of ribbons across the spectrum and a few division reserve champions. So although an overall championship or reserve remains elusive, maybe we're getting a little bit closer. By the way, I don't know if it's visible on the recording, but there is a gigantic fly buzzing around me. You know what flies do, so excuse me if I flinch away from him at points. Because this is a pretty busy show with 6 rings, one very helpful thing that I did this time was I printed out a separate class list, and I mean on separate pieces of paper, with the classes for rings 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 5 and 6 separately, with the horses I had in each class clearly written out. Then, as I heard classes being called, I crossed them off. Having the separate printouts was helpful to see where there might be conflicts, and also, if a division ended, I could just put the piece of paper away. To my surprise, my big winners this time were all in breed. I've always considered myself more interested in collectibility, and I try my best to get models that I think will have some collectibility value. But in this region, the collectibility classes, even at a novice or intermediate level, are crazy. I mean, I would occasionally, because the way this venue is laid out, there is the large, well, was, because unfortunately this is the last time that we will be able to use this venue, but It's a large open room, and that was where the intermediate division was taking place. And then there was kind of a smaller alcove that was still open to the larger room, and that's where the novices were because there were a lot fewer of them in number. And so if I had a spare moment, I would occasionally go take a glance at the tables in the novice area, and there was somebody there with a color shift Speos. Which is one of my super grails. And that was in Novice. I didn't get any division awards for collectibility this time around, but the standouts in the collectibility classes include my Washington, who got second place in the Breyer Regular Run 2016 through 2025 class, my Glossy Hoopla, who got first place in the Breyerfest Models 501 Plus Made, Other Special Run, Limited Edition, or Store Special class, and Mirror Image, who got first in Other Breyer Event or Direct Sale, 501 pieces made, or 501 plus pieces made, and also my Fanfare, who got second in the same class. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little surprised that my Heartlands didn't do super well this time around. The most competitive one that I brought was my new Black Blanket Appaloosa, the one who was a 75-piece run. If you do not know who I'm talking about, just watch one of my last couple of videos because I feel like I have not shut up about him. I promise you will see him in one of those. He got a third. So we still earned a card for regionals in Novice Non-Breed, but this guy is truly super rare. I look for Heartlands for sale frequently, and because of his small run size, I had never seen him before I actually bought him, but alas, this was a single class. It was combined with Copper Fox and a bunch of other types of models, and it was the Copper Foxes who won the day. So if I guess we're factoring in desirability, more people would be apt to spring for a Copper Fox than a Heartland, most likely, most of the time. But those were lessons for the following day, and we'll loop back around to that in a bit. Now with Breed, I have often lamented feeling as though I'm not doing things quite right. I do my best to just put the needed information on my documentation card, and I try really hard to find a similar looking horse for my picture or pictures, but nevertheless, I have occasionally been bamboozled by some of my models doing well, while some that I think should do well never do. I do think that this time the judge and I were especially on the same wavelength. And I am not just saying that because I did well in several of my classes, but because I would, again, when I had a spare moment, walk around the table, especially knowing that I was going to be concentrating on judge shadowing the next day, but I would walk around the table, especially for classes that I didn't have models in, and I very often could pick the horse or a few horses that ended up doing well, which doesn't always happen for me. So I was glad that I felt like I had a good idea that what I was doing was right. So my horses that got regional breed cards in these classes include my Glossy Hoopla again, who got third place in the European Warm Blood division, or class rather. My Connemara pony on the braided newsworthy mold, who got first place in the British ponies class. This was one of those models that I have shown every single time, and this is the first show at which he has ever gotten a ribbon, and it was a first. And the reason I keep bringing him back is because I think that he is lovely. He is in excellent condition, he's got good shading, and he has nice dappling. And I also would like to think that my documentation, while the description I have is a little bit wordy, it could probably be pared down a bit, but the picture that's on it, I would like to think, is an extremely good match. So I was thrilled that someone else saw in this model what I see in him. Then in the Appaloosa class, my Indian pony, Jujubee, took first place again for the second show in a row. What's funny is I purposely did not take this guy to the very first Novice show that I attended. Well, not the first Novice show because that was a scratch and dent. Anyway, I didn't take him to my first real show, I guess you could say, because I didn't think he would be popular. I know I love looking at funky old school style Appaloosas, but I also know that that is not necessarily what's popular in the breed right now. But the last time, and we're not counting Are You Kidding Me Live, but the last time that I attended a show, I decided, what the heck, I will bring him, and he got first place in the Appaloosa class then, and he got first place in the Appaloosa class now. So he's kind of my sleeper hit. For this particular class, and for several of the others as well, I like that the judge explained her rationale for the choices that she made for the placings, and I was glad to hear that, like me, she prefers this style of the breed, because you'll see the mold. I'm either showing you a picture of him on the screen now, or you will be seeing him. I don't know where I'm going to be placing my pictures in this video, but he is extremely typey in an old school Appaloosa way, with the sparse tail, and the white around his eyes, and the striped hooves, and I don't actually know if he has mottled skin, but he's got all the other traits, so he is very much an Appaloosa. And another thing that's funny about that particular model is he is one of the ones that I bought before I was back into seriously collecting. I just got him because we were at a toy store that we still occasionally visit that has a handful of Briars, and I said I like Appaloosas, and I bought him. So the fact that he keeps doing well for me is just kind of the icing on the cake. And that particular model at this show ended up getting reserve champion in the stock breeds division. Speaking of putting horses into classes just for the fun of it, I put my copy of Flowers, the little glossy chestnut loping quarter horse stablemate from last year's Briarfest. I put her in the quarter horse class, again, just kind of because I felt like it, and she came away with third. And that also gets her a regional novice breed card, so no complaints there. In Spanish gated breeds, we had my other does well every single time I bring him out model, and that is my copy of Glossy Canción sobre las olas, who, again, got first place. For other horses, third place in the mules, donkeys, and exotics class went to my copy of Finn Shapoopy. I don't actually have a picture of him, nor do I have him out to show you, but it's the Finn that is the spotted blanket version. He is another guy that's done well for me before. By the way, I should note that I'm only mentioning the horses that got first through third. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I have horses that got ribbons across the spectrum, and this show does give ribbons to 10th, which is nice. But I don't want to make this video longer than it needs to be, so again, keeping it short and sweet, going over just the top bunch of horses. The other breeds not listed / mix / grade class was interesting because it was probably at least half made up of everyone's new Cosimo models. That was where it was decided that Emergies would go for this particular show. My matte version was amongst those, so imagine my surprise when he was the one who got first place, and then went on to take reserve champion in the other breeds division. Again, I appreciated that for that class, I think especially because there were so many copies, both matte and glossy, of the same model, that she explained that deciding who placed where really boiled down to small details. Partially, it was what people had written down in their documentation. For example, I guess that a lot of people, wherever they were getting their information on the Murgie's horse from, noted that it had prominent withers. I probably was quoting from the same site, but noticed that this model doesn't have prominent withers, so I didn't put that in my documentation, and so the judge actually mentioned that as being something she was keeping an eye out for. And also, some of the placings boil down to preference. I guess that my model has more subtle dappling than some of the other models, and that is what she prefers to see. And what's funny there is that I think I tend to prefer not fish scale level, but I do like seeing dappling on a model, like quite a bit. So I probably would have placed the other copy ahead of mine just because of that. For once I had foals. I've made an effort over the past few months to get more foals in my show string, and it paid off. All of them, all of the ones that I brought, it was not a ton, I think like maybe 5, got some kind of ribbon. My Ollie from the Poppy and Ollie set got first place in the sports full class, as well as reserve champion in the full division, and my copy of Beltane got 3rd in the draft, pony, and other fulls class. Finally, I brought 3 of my artist resins. Eohippus had to stay home this time because he did get a Nan card. 2 of the 3 that I brought did super well. My Cisco got 2nd place in the Dilute Solid Colors class, and Nightmare got 1st in the Unrealistic Color and Fantasy class. They both earned top 10 ribbons for the overall custom/artist resin division. And the last couple of fun awards to mention. There are always a handful of fun classes. I mean, I think it's pretty standard that most horse shows, if not probably all of them nowadays, offer some kind of fun classes, and I do like taking part when I can. Last year, I went big, and I had, I think, an entry in almost all of them. This year, I did not feel like packing up too many extra models, so I only entered 1. And that was the conga class. But again, if you are not new here and you know that I have a family Arabian full conga, do not worry, I did not pack up all of them this year. That was last year. But instead of bringing a bunch of horses, I brought the mini cat model conga that I won at RU Kitten Me Live. Apparently, and I'll put a picture of them on the screen, these were called pocket box cats, and they were blind bag sets. So each of these little boxes, because they are quite tiny, contains 2 plastic kitties, an accessory, and a sticker. And so Travis helped to set them up, and people were smitten. So because for the fun classes, again, I think this is pretty standard, but because the fun classes are voted on by the show attendees, we did get a 1st place for our feline setup. Another thing is that everyone is allowed to give out little trinkets or candies next to models that they really like. It doesn't affect judging in any way, it's just a little something to let somebody know, hey, you have a model that I think is cool. For example, I noticed over in the Novice area, again, crazy that this was in the Novice area, but I noticed that someone had a gilt edge with the box and the truck. It's a whole set. Again, I'll put a picture up on the screen. Even though the Hackney model doesn't get a lot of love, I like him and I do want to get that set someday. So I gave him a trinket. Well, I kept track of how many of my models got such trinkets or candies throughout the day, and 15 of my models received something. In fact, my Peter Stone ringtail lemur, Chip, got 2 likes, and my super cool nightmare resin got 3. Here is a picture of the pile of trinkets and candies that I had by the end. So even though an overall champion or reserve ribbon remains elusive, this was a really great show experience. Like, can I just stay in intermediate level for, I don't know, another 5 years? Because I don't want to move up to open, not in Region 10. Please? My model horse activities did not stop there for the weekend, however. On Sunday, I returned to the venue to get some experience judge shadowing. As I mentioned in the beginning, this was a mini show. So basically it was for anything that is little bit sized or smaller, all the way down to mini winnies, and there were divisions for Peter Stones as well as for Briar. I took turns shadowing all 3 judges because there was one person concentrating on stablemates, one person concentrating on the other Briar scales, and a 3rd judge concentrating on the Peter Stones. So I would take time bouncing around from one person to the next as appropriate. Even though I was only able to spend about half the day there, only until lunchtime, I learned so much from every single judge. Now, I don't know if I mentioned at the beginning or not, that not only was this for mini scale, but this was also a collectability focused show. So it was interesting to see and hear the slightly different ways that different judges approach things, especially when it came to large classes. And at some point in this footage, I just had to take a quick video of the lineup of horses in the stablemates. I don't have the exact name of the class here, but it was for, I'm gonna guess, the G1 models Dapple Gray. Yeah, G1 Dapple Gray stablemates. That just put those words together in a way that makes sense. Because, again, it's one of those classes that if I looked at it before this half day that I spent judge shadowing, I would have been like, I don't even know where a person would start with such similar, yet not similar models. So I will include the footage that I took of that lineup at some point in this section. And as an offshoot of what I learned during just these few hours, it also made me feel a little bit better about showing, because I promise you that every time we would approach a table, every horse on that table was super cool. And even if the winner or first 2 horses might be easier to pick out, just as much thought, if not more, has to go into figuring out the rest of the placings. And often the differences boil down to very small things. By the way, I'm also going to include just a handful of pictures of other models that were at this mini show that I thought were great. And also solidifies my opinion that the very best models appeared at the Velvet Rope event, and I will not be taking questions at this time. I always kind of worried that when judging, it would be difficult to overcome personal bias. And I'm gonna be super vague, and I'm actually not referring... Wait, am I? I might be referring to a model from the Velvet Rope event. But anyway, in one of the classes that I shadowed, and it was a large class, right there on the table was one of my top Grail stablemates. Old me probably would have thought, okay, that gets first place, and now about the rest. But looking at every horse there with an objective system in mind, that did not end up being the case at all. In fact, I don't even remember if that horse, cool as it is, ended up placing. Just because the competition is so very challenging, especially in this region. While I know that one half day of judge shadowing does not make me an expert, trust me, I know. Nor am I actually ready to judge a show. I have practice judged a few collectability classes from some photo shows that are out there online that you can just like go look at. Obviously, photo shows are a little bit different because you might be taking the quality of the photograph into consideration, and I was not. But what was interesting is that I found that my placings were often closer to the pinning order, or if not, I feel as though I have actual reasons why I would pick a particular order. Whereas the times that I used to try this in the past, it bothered me a lot more if the way that I would pin the class didn't match the way the judges actually did pin the class. And I'm still talking about when looking at photo shows. In fact, what I found to be probably the biggest challenge about judging, and is something that if I do get to the point of wanting to actually try my hand at being a judge, the one thing that I think is going to be an actual difficulty is the ability to pay close attention to something for many hours. Because I even towards the end of this half day, it was starting to get a little bit difficult. So I think judging for an entire show would be a real challenge. I will say that this whole experience reinforced the need to keep learning and to keep an ear to different model horse groups and forums, even if I choose to mostly be a lurker. Now, stablemates and other minis aren't the main focus of my collecting. I would say that traditional scale is. But knowing which molds are considered more desirable, for example, you won't find that in any reference sources. That's just the kind of thing that you have to keep an eye and ear out for in the real model horse world. And sometimes it was something like that, which really made a difference when it came to choosing one horse over another, especially when in some cases, everything was pretty much the same. Now I would definitely like to get experience shadowing a judge for breed, because that is something that still feels, you know, despite having some really positive experiences at this past show, still feels a little mysterious to me. Again, just like can't help feeling like, oh, that's gonna rely more on personal opinion, but I am sure that is not, in fact, the answer. So actually tomorrow there is an event and a swap meet here in Region 10. There's a whole day's worth of workshops, and one of them is a 2-hour judging clinic. Part of that, I believe we're going to be covering collectability, breed, and then also touching on workmanship. So, you know, again, part of a 2-hour workshop is not going to make me ready to judge, but I really do look forward to hearing what this person has to say, is their philosophy, their criteria, and hopefully we'll get some examples and maybe even some judges and maybe even get some, you know, pretend classes to try and judge on our own. I would really like the opportunity to get to practice that, because when I was doing the judge shadowing at the collectability show, that was something that I really appreciated, is that sometimes the judge would be like, you know, we'd walk up to a new table and the judge would be like, so what do you think? And, you know, not at the beginning, clearly, but like after I'd been around for a bit. And at first it was really intimidating because it was like, I don't think I can give my opinion on this. You know, it's a little bit like teaching, which is a big part of my day job, where this is such an aside, but when I first went into my field, when I started my master's degree, I did not intend to make teaching part of my career at all. You know, I am very quiet in real life. I could happily go, I don't know, probably a very long time without speaking and be perfectly fine. And I remember when I applied for one of the internships that I had, when the person who was interviewing me said, "So you know that teaching is going to be a significant part of this position, right?" And I was just kind of like, oh. Because I hadn't realized that. And long story short, it turned out that I actually really enjoy teaching quite a bit. But in the beginning, I felt like, how am I qualified to do this? And I can't help but feel like it's kind of the same thing here. Well, surprise, I had mentors, I had practice classes, and eventually I became really comfortable and really confident with teaching. And so I assume that I can kind of make the same thing happen with judging, and eventually I will want to jump into the pool and give it a shot. But that is far in the future, so we aren't going to worry about that for now. So that is my video about my very enjoyable, very successful latest live model horse show experience and my judge shadowing experience. So how about you? Do you currently judge? Is judging something that you are interested in? If you do, or if you are interested, what do you like judging the most? Are you more of a artistry and workmanship person, or are you really into performance, which I think would be fascinating to be able to judge, because again, the amount of knowledge that you need to have to do that well is insane. Yeah, I'm just really curious. And if you don't currently judge, is that something that eventually you would like to make part of your model horse journey? So that is all for today. I am thinking that I am finally going to get around to my next F tier video, which, to jog your memory, should be on Roy the Belgian. I am hoping I can pick one up for cheapish tomorrow at the swap meet. We will see. At this point, even if it's a body, that's fine. I will give you a note though that this is the beginning of the semester. I work in academia. It's the busiest time of the year, okay? We just had the first week of classes, and although this was probably the busiest week, I'm still quite busy every day for the next couple of weeks. So I cannot guarantee that there will be another video a week from now, but as soon as I can dedicate the time to it, you will see it. So until then, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.